Hi, this is Shannon and Joy. Welcome to Macke, Satin and Shimmer, Inside the World of Beauty, episode number 1.
Yay!
So excited. Today we're going to be introducing ourselves and talking about how we got into the beauty business and sort of what got us started and how that looks now, the services we offer, and just a little bit of behind the scenes.
Just a little history on us.
Yeah, good stuff. So you want to go first and talk about what?
Oh, no, you go, Shannon.
You want to go? All right.
Yes,
All right.
you go.
So, okay, well, I went to beauty school in 1997 after I had graduated high school. I grew up, of course, always wanting to play with hair and do fun things like that, but never really thought about doing it as a career. So, going to beauty school after high school was a great experience, and I just kind of felt myself come alive and find my purpose, which was pretty awesome. So that led me to starting in my very first salon in 1998, which was with my cousin in Indiana. Typical hairdresser
So you moved to
story.
Indiana for your first salon job.
I grew up in Indiana, actually.
Oh, how about that? So we both live in Central Ohio now, for those of
Yes.
you who don't know.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
Yeah, so in that crazy little small town, just looking for opportunities that fit well with me and everything. Worked for my cousin. She just had, long hair, and she would have me wash it and style it. And I learned a lot, just what it takes to be behind the chair and how that looks. And, it was quite different. I thought I would come out of beauty school knowing exactly how things would go. And you don't. You kind of learn the basics of how things work, and then you really learn when you go into the salon. So that was that. And then about a year and a half into it, I've always had this entrepreneur mind, and I was ready to open up my own salon. So I hired a girl to work alongside of me, and we brought in a massage therapist, and we were a pretty good crew.
And that was still in Indiana.
And that was still in Indiana, yeah, back in Shelbyville, which is a pretty small town outside of, about 20 minutes south of Indianapolis.
Okay.
So, yeah, then we moved to Ohio in 2001 for some opportunities my husband had, which has been just a really mighty blessing. It's just all turned around from there. I learned my basics in Indiana and came to Ohio and just sort of built on those. Went into a spa type setting at Kenneth's, which was really good. I worked for a lady named Sue Seidel, and she really took me under her wing and taught me more detailed and advanced, techniques and things like that. So that
Mostly
was
cut color, or also a lot with styling?
it was a lot of cut color techniques, some updo styling.
And Kenneth's, for those of you who don't know, is huge. In Central Ohio, it's one of the, I'd say, 2 really large hair salon businesses. And I think it's mostly based, Penzone's and Kenneth's are in Central Ohio.
Yeah, I know they're corporates in Dublin.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So they're,
yeah.
but they're huge, and
Yeah.
definitely the juggernaut of the hair industry here.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry to cut you off there.
No, that's good. I love it. So, all right, after leaving Kenneth's, that was a good experience, but I never really saw myself as being there long term, more there for just learning what I could take on. So I hopped around at a couple of salons and worked for some really great people, but some very strong personalities, and that left me pretty conflicted. I wasn't real interested always in working for somebody. So, one day I had an interesting experience with the last salon owner that I worked for, and I just went home in tears and confused, just not even understanding the conflict that we had. And my husband said, you're never going back there again. And so it just left me feeling, well, maybe I'll just never even do hair again. And
so easy to get defeated from one thing. And I feel like anybody who is looking to get into beauty, that's just something you have to know and roll with. You're going to have those days where you don't think you ever want to do it again.
Absolutely. You're right. You're right. You can't let people drag you down.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I learned. And
or talk yourself down. Like, you have to get good at talking yourself down and just kind of rolling with it. And,
Absolutely.
you know, we all have, you know, a bell curve on that, but every single day I feel like can be a learning experience at getting better at rolling with, you know, other people's personalities and demands and stuff, because there's a lot of that.
Oh, yeah. But it builds you up, you know.
Yeah.
And looking back now, I'm a completely different person, you know, than I was then.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great. I'm very grateful for that. So that's when the wedding hair business kind of landed in my lap and met Joy pretty...
Was that like 2008?
Oh, man. I think that was about, what was it, 6 years ago?
Yeah, probably, yeah, about 7 years ago.
Something like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, so I think we started around the same time.
We did. And
Which was neat.
Yeah, it just kind of so happened that I think we both got bit with that entrepreneurial sort of bug in the beauty biz right around the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So once you went off on your own, how do you feel like, were you paying for advertising? Did you feel like you were just taking advantage of everything you could? And how did you start getting freelance bookings?
Wow, that's a good question. So when I first started, I started with a very low price point, just to try to get what I could get, because I figured, you know, I mean...
Still better than the salon, probably.
Yeah, better than the salon, better than making, you know, whatever, you know, $8 an hour working at some department store that I didn't like. Might as well, you know, just take on what I can get for, you know, a pretty affordable price. Actually, I was charging $35 per person, which is outrageous.
Including the bride.
Including the bride.
Wow. So how did people find you, though? Was it online? Did you have a website? Did you have a blog? Did you have ads on, like, Wedding Wire or The Knot or anything like that?
Okay, so yeah, I developed a website. It was a pretty basic website. My brother-in-law helped me to develop that, and just posted on every wedding website I could find. It was One Wed. It was Wedding Wire. You can't really advertise on The Knot, but you know, I tried to figure that out. Craigslist.
You mean you couldn't advertise on The Knot?
Well, not free advertising.
Not free, okay.
At that point, I wasn't ready to pay for, and I didn't pay, actually. As I established my business, I never paid for advertising.
Yeah, because back, you know, 6 years ago, I don't think there was quite as much saturation in the freelance industry.
Mm-hmm.
So, at least for me, and maybe there always was for hair, but I feel like, also, do you feel like the need for traveling services has become just sort of a staple? Whereas I feel like 6 to 8 years ago, it was something that you didn't necessarily say, oh, I'm definitely going to have somebody come to me for my wedding and do my hair and makeup. And now, if you're doing, you know, a regular to high price wedding, I'm not talking about your, like, quick backyard weddings or Justice of the Peace style weddings, but anybody who is going to have bridesmaids that were going to get hairstyled, let's say at a salon, now it's sort of like understood that you'll have them come to you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I just feel like it's sort of added to the culture of an American wedding. Well, I mean, not just American weddings, and we do all types of weddings, right? You know, a lot of different cultures. And
Indian weddings and Greek weddings and everything. I mean, but yeah. So then and that's sort of a segue into, you know, talking about how I got started. But yeah, since we did get in the freelance business at the same time, we sort of saw that development and that change in the industry where, you know, we are somewhat fortunate that we both decided to get in right when it started to become more popular. So to rewind, do you feel like you've told your story?
Absolutely.
I don't want to completely step all over you, Shannon.
No, go for it.
Shannon was going to make me talk first, and I thought I better make her go first because I have trouble not talking. So this is Joy. So I graduated from high school in the early 90s and was a sort of good student, but not amazing student, and I never really studied. So I thought the only thing I like is performing. And it didn't occur to me to be a makeup artist. At the time, the only sort of, sort of awareness that I had of makeup and the world of beauty was that I loved products. I didn't spend a lot of time or money on anything, but I even remember as a kid that maybe like around 12 to 14 years old, every Christmas what I wanted was one of those blockbusters from like Elizabeth Arden or Estee Lauder or something like that. Like I just loved looking at all the shadows and all the blushes, and that was just like, I mean, heaven to me. And I do remember getting into my mom's makeup drawer pretty much several times a week as a kid too. I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't visually artistic. I was into theater and choir and dorky stuff like that. But also, I think I'd become sort of a not awesome kid when I was in high school and hung out with kids who were not the honor student that I was. I was trying to sort of change my whole status, I think, and not be known as the nerd. Not very effectively, but I sort of hung out with the alternative kids. And in the early 90s, that did not exactly entail lots of hair and makeup. It was pretty low maintenance, a little black eyeliner and some powder, and that was about it.
Wow.
So when I went to college at Ohio State, I studied theater, and I got straight C minuses, and I barely scraped out to get my degree, and I think I had like a 2.26, and I think it might be one of the all-time lowest grade point averages to actually graduate in 5 years.
That's awesome.
From Ohio State. I went out 7 nights a week. The social part of it was much more interesting to me. I wanted to drop out every single quarter, and my mom would talk me back into it. And at that point, it would be, well, I've got 2 years under my belt, I may as well just finish. And that's all I kind of did was just finish, and I kind of thought, I don't know what I want to do with myself. I did take makeup classes. Are we good on everything? Okay.
Yeah.
I did take makeup classes in college, but again, it didn't sort of occur to me that it wasn't just something I had to do for my requirements in theater. And at that point, I kind of just wanted to be a rock star, and I started bands, and that was my path, and that was what I was going to do. And I didn't even know how I was going to earn a living, but while I was in my last couple years of college, I worked at Victoria's Secret Catalog because the home office was located here in Central Ohio, and I did really, really well in sales, like really well. It came very, very naturally to me, and it wasn't something that I saw myself in for the long haul, but it was a good way to make money while I was in college. So flash forward to finishing college and not really being able to make more money with my degree, I decided to stick it out at Victoria's Secret Catalog indefinitely. So I was there for a little bit over 4 years with a little hiatus to New York City to be a rock star, which didn't quite pan out.
Oh, no.
And then we're looking at about the year 2000. I remember I had to quit my job because I had so many absences, and I was like on a final warning for lateness and absences. And then at the Millennium, I got strep throat. It was like the worst, but of course my supervisor thought I was faking it and thought that I was just out too late and couldn't come in, and I was legitimately like going to the urgent care and couldn't even like get out of bed. So I walked into my job, I think it was on the 2nd or the 3rd, with the doctor's note, and she said they'd have to review it with human resources since I didn't have any more absences that I was allowed.
Joy.
So they were going to partner up, which probably meant I was fine, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and walk out and not get fired from a job I've been at for over 4 years. You don't want to get fired from a job where you're a top performer, even if it is your own fault.
Yeah.
But clearly I was really sick. So walked out, had no idea what I was going to do, and ended up in staffing for 6 months. Then ended up working at some random website where I was in sales for about a year. And then we're looking at about September of 2001, and we all know what happened on September 11th, 2001. I was working for this small website where I was calling on artists to try to buy ad space, and I was miserable and just kind of faking my way through it. There's only like 4 or 5 employees in the whole place, and I remember how insensitive the owner was about the tragedies that happened that day, and I couldn't stop focusing on looking at the news and stuff. And this was like on the day of, the day after, and the week after. Everybody was fixated on the news at that point. And I just thought, this is not what my path is supposed to be. You know what? If I have to suck it up and go work in cosmetics with people who, you know, have not even a high school diploma, that's what I need to do, because I think that will make me a million times happier. And at that time, we had these big malls opening, so I went for these big cattle calls for the cosmetics department, and Lord & Taylor ended up offering me counter manager for both Chanel and Dior, because it's really more of like a sales job than anything else, and I did have the sales background. So I decided to choose Chanel. They offered me like 50 cents more an hour or something, and for the couple weeks before the mall opens, with any new store, you kind of help the store open. So we were doing all the pre-opening stuff, and I was so excited and so ready to start putting makeup on people and selling makeup, and I really did see sort of like from the sales end. But then the day that it opened, I had people coming to me asking for things that Chanel didn't carry, or none of the other counters in my small department at Lord & Taylor carried, and I was really kind of excited about a couple new lines they had down at Macy's, which actually at the time was Lazarus. One of them being Benefit Cosmetics, which we had never had in Columbus. So I referred a couple people down there who were looking for things like shimmers and glitters and loose things like that. Okay. And what's our time? Just so I know we're good.
We're right around 16 minutes.
Oh, okay,
so
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was like, as I said, I could talk a lot.
Yeah, go for it.
So I sent people down to Benefit, and at the end of the day, I wanted to go check out the counter myself. And I said, hey, is anybody here from Benefit? I have sent people down to your counter a couple times today because I work at the Chanel counter at Lord & Taylor. And the rep stood up and she said, I am. She turned out to be like the head regional person for like the whole Midwest, and that was a huge, huge account.
Wow.
And she went and got me coffee, and by the time we were done with coffee, she was offering me a account coordinator position, which that's beyond counter manager, and it was the first day the mall opened.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I thought, oh, I love her. She's so much fun. This is great. So I got a salaried position, which I'd never had anything except for hourly. They were doing mileage and all that good stuff, and I got gratis. I mean, I was on cloud 9. Products were just like my happy spot, you know?
Yeah.
So my personal sales were great. I could lead people pretty well to sell, but I didn't really understand the department store sort of structure and the way that they do their sales and the way that they do their sort of inter-department selling. So there were other people at our shared counters who thought I was stealing their sales. Like we shared our Polaris counter with prescriptives, and the prescriptives people would have to check their people out at the same register as us where our products were, and people would ask about our products. And I didn't know you shouldn't answer, you know, when the person's asking, just let the prescriptives person answer. So I made some enemies early on, and I was just trying to be a really good salesperson and a good leader, but I don't think that I had anybody showing me really how to be that role. So long story short, it lasted a little bit more than a year, but I was probably in over my head, and the woman who hired me came to Ohio 2 or 3 times in that year, and she essentially did nothing else for me. I was sent to, I think, Chicago and Atlanta for training, and then beyond that, I was just kind of like floating around without a raft. And now looking back on it, I'm like, that's a decent amount of support, but she wouldn't answer my emails, and I was always stressed out and always worried that I was doing something wrong, and turns out I was. It was before smartphones. I was not organized, and now my whole organization is on my phone.
Oh yeah, mine too. Yeah.
So I'd be nothing without that, and I feel like, you know, college and early career would have been very different had I had, you know, at least a BlackBerry or something, let alone an iPhone. So we're in about 2002, 2003. I decided to go to stay in cosmetics, but I went the freelance route instead of working at just one counter. I sort of felt at that point like, I know that I have low attention span, so I was like, I can't see myself standing around at just like the Macke counter for 28, 32, 42, however many hours. It sounded like a torture sentence.
Yeah.
So I liked the idea of being able to like pop into Saks one day, pop into Nordstrom one day, pop into Lazarus one day, aka Macy's, and do 5 or 6 hour shifts as opposed to 8 or 9 hour shifts. Again, really low attention span. And in those 5 or 6 hour shifts, if you're a salesperson, you're there to sell. Yes, you can call yourself a regional makeup artist, but now, again, looking back on it, I'm like, what did I know about makeup? I mean, honestly, my training was so minimal that really it just came from hands-on, touching more faces. I got better the more people I worked with. I mean, and I tell people this all the time, you can go to makeup school, and I seriously think that's an awesome route, and I kind of wish I had done that now. But I also think that college is a really important route for most people too, because you get the discipline, even if you do graduate with a 2.26. And you learn how to BS your way out of stuff, if nothing else. And I really feel like now with the internet being so accessible, you could live anywhere and have a really fruitful business as a freelance hair or makeup stylist. So again, very similar to Shannon, I floated in that whole cosmetics realm until 2008. I think in 2006 I got promoted with Tarte Cosmetics to be their regional trainer, regional education manager, which again was still a sales position, but I was working in the Sephora stores where they really don't want you on the floor selling all the time. They want you to do trainings with their employees. So I was training for 35 stores throughout the Midwest and Canada. So my life was just like planes and cars and hotels and malls, period.
Oh, wow.
That was it. And I started to get really depressed, and I just realized that wasn't where I wanted to be anymore, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved the makeup part of it. I loved the products. I loved the interaction with people in my chair. And it wasn't so much about artistry from the standpoint of like drawing butterflies on people's eyes. It was really about artistry of transforming somebody so that they looked at themselves and they go, oh, I feel so pretty.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And, really basic stuff like that. So everyday makeup or special occasion makeup, but not necessarily like editorial. And I didn't have the aspiration to be that editorial makeup artist. So really it was a natural fit for me to go sort of the freelance way with my theater background. It was like sort of made sense that I would do production work, and then also with the feeling that I just want to make people feel pretty, it also made sense that I would do that for weddings, which is the most popular thing to hire a makeup artist for, at least here in Central Ohio it is. So I would get calls because I had this free advertisement on a website called Party Pop. Did you ever do Party Pop?
Oh, yes, I think I did, yeah.
And I don't even remember what I put on there, but, I started to get random calls, and I would pass them off because I was in retail. Well, finally, when I stepped down from that position, I started taking the jobs and was like, hey, Wedding Wire, I can get a free ad on Wedding Wire, so I'll do that. OneWed, I can get a free ad there. So then we started getting probably more and more emails and phone calls, and I didn't think, oh, I'll make a full-time living out of this. I thought, I got to get a new career. I got to figure something else out. So I would still do a little freelance in cosmetics on the side, but I could not do the like full-time regional education manager type position. What's our time now?
We are right around 23 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, we're good. Maybe about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah. So the last 6 years or so is when I transitioned into doing it full time. I would say around 2010, about 4.5 years ago-ish, is when I thought, okay, I need to make this really a commitment. And at that point, I decided doing makeup trials in my living room with my dog and 2 cats kind of walking around. It didn't seem really like the impression that I wanted to give off anymore. So I decided I was making enough at that point freelancing to pay for a small office space. So I got a small office, and I feel like you remember that space.
Yeah, right on.
It was actually pretty cute, and that I feel like was a transition. Also, that same year, I was like, what if I got some interns? I mean, I have a legitimate business. I started paying for the Knot, and that really, and I always tell the rep from the Knot, that really brought my business to the next level. I started getting higher end inquiries and making a lot more money from that. And at that point, I hired the interns for that summer to help me, not with the artistry stuff and not to come on site with me. It was really for the back end stuff. I had one that was getting me all of my like tax stuff and my spreadsheets and my expenses and that sort of, I'm not good at that type of stuff things. She helped me get my act together, at least for that year or two. And then I had one that was really good with graphic design, and she helped me with my logo and my website. And at the time, all I had was a blog, and she built a website for me, and it was amazing, and I still use the logo and the stuff that she designed. The website I've completely redone, but I use all the images that she put together for me still. I started putting together some styled shoots with photographers that I would find on like Model Mayhem and models I would find there. And I just started getting a little bit more industrious and trying to make this my living. And as you know, the longer you're in it, the more you meet people. And I mean, it was great meeting you. And then there's another hairstylist that I get referrals from. There are several wedding planners that they didn't necessarily reach out to me, that things just kind of came together. They started seeing my work on their brides that had already hired me. I know one of them who uses me exclusively started referring me because her bride used me very last minute. She booked me. I did a party of 9 people, ended up covering 4 tattoos, which weren't planned, and then the mother of the bride's dress ripped. The zipper totally wouldn't zip, so I ended up sewing her into her dress.
Oh, wow.
And that sealed the deal. So now she gives me all of her referrals. And this just goes to show, like, you know, you got to have a can-do attitude and, like, all hands on deck. You realize this is an important day for many people if you're doing bridal stuff, and, you know, you just have to make them your priority and do everything you can to win their business. As much as there is a ton of business out there, I feel like if it falls in your lap and you're lucky enough to get that chance, you can't take it for granted, and you have to make sure that your services really match that. So I know that for all of my people that sit in my chair for bridal makeup, I offer airbrush or traditional makeup. I offer lashes. They can either do strip or individual clusters, and then I also do a little to-go lip touch-up for each person, a little jar and a little tiny brush, and I feel like that sets me apart. And maybe there's also some people who have started doing that because I offered it in this area of Ohio. Then they go, oh, well, we have to match what other people are doing. So, you know, and other things, like you want to make sure that if your name is out there, which the more work you get, the more your actual name or your business name is out there, that you're trying to be associated with positive things. And I learned some lessons early on. I had another makeup artist that I had reached out to give me some referrals, and she was really helpful. And I remember I said a couple negative things about her, even though I had not personally met her in person. And I felt horrible about it, and ever since then, I really try to stay above the fray and use networking to build people up instead of tear them down. And I've started a makeup artist board on Facebook. So there's maybe like 50 or 60 makeup artists in Ohio. So we, sometimes it's about referrals, sometimes it's about products, but I just kind of like the camaraderie, and I did miss having coworkers. And then I also have a referral thread that I started on Facebook with about a dozen makeup artists that I trust, where if we can't do a day, we refer stuff to other people if they can do it. And I feel like in that way, it's good karma too. You're putting work out there for people, and then if there are things that you need, it'll come back to you. And it's just a constant lesson, I feel like, to work for yourself. So that's my journey, and I talked a whole lot.
No, but it's all good. I think that's all good stuff that, you know, people can benefit from. So, all right. Well, I think that wraps it up for this episode. So thank you for listening. We'd love to hear from you, or, you know, just tag us in your post. We would love to hear your feedback. You can find me, Shannon Goode, at my website, and it's shannongoode.com, ShannonGoode. You can find me on Facebook and Pinterest under Good Hair Award-winning on-site hair styling specialist.
That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. And then on Instagram and Twitter, and then Snapchat at Running Hair Girl, and Google Plus at Shannon Goode. And then where are you at, Joy?
You can find me, first of all, my website is www.stateofface.com, and that's face like you put makeup on a face. So stateofface.com. My email is stateofface@gmail.com. And I have a Facebook at State of Face Makeup Artistry, Pinterest, and Instagram and Twitter. I'm Joy Hearts Hearts. And that was stemmed because I do love a heart. So Joy Hearts Hearts. There's 2 S's in that. And both of those or Instagram and Pinterest, I do post some of my work. And also just kind of, getting to know you. It's kind of a little bit of everything, but definitely a lot of beauty-related stuff. Yeah, and Twitter, I think, just mostly comes from my personal Facebook. I don't really tweet on purpose. And I don't Snapchat. Or Google Plus. I think I'm on there, but I don't use it. And then I also started a website called the Columbus Agency. It goes a little bit into that networking that I talked about, building people up and trying to use networking for good and not evil. And that actually has a website called thecolumbusagency.com. And there's a few of us listed on that. And that's about it. We are so appreciative of anybody who decided to listen. If you have any questions, feel free to email us or tag us. And hopefully we will see you for podcast number 2.